Well, George, I think we met a long time ago. You came up to UVA with your AAU team, probably like mid '80s, and I was refereeing some of your games at U-Haul. So I knew who you were. You were a big guy at a very young age, and you had the same game you had in the NBA when you were like 14 years old or 15 years old to me.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'm trying to get my 15-year-old to play as hard as I played.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. You played hard. That was kind of the Roanoke way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the podcast series is Nova Legends, and since you played one year at Flint Hill, but also because you're in the NBA, we're going to let you in anyway.
All right.
Yeah, but before we get to Roanoke, I'd like to ask you a little bit about Hubert. Hubert was your teammate at North Carolina for 3 years. Hubert Davis. And did you have any sense of when you played with him, or if someone would have told you 30 years ago when you were playing with Hubert that he'd be the head coach one day at North Carolina, what would you have said?
30 years ago?
Yeah.
I would have told you Hubert wouldn't even wanted to be a coach at Carolina. So,
yeah.
But how time changes people, guys, perspective in life and things that they want to do, how many times your career changes, because he was doing a great job commentating, for ESPN. And, but I guess, if you play at those levels, you got to love the game at some point. And that's what I try and teach, trying to get my son to understand, make sure you love the game and you got a passion for it.
So how old's your son? You may have said that earlier, but.
Yeah, I got 2 boys.
Okay.
My oldest is 24 and my youngest is 15. He's a sophomore in high school.
So did your oldest play as well?
He played football.
You played football?
SMU.
Okay. Yeah. All right, cool. So when I talked to Bobby Dandridge about a month ago after he got into the Hall of Fame, and he's a lot like you in that you guys are small forwards. I mean, your games are very unique, but you could defend post players, outside players. You have a really good mid-range game. Very crafty around the board. But you're a mid-range. I mean, you're a small forward. No one ever questions what your position is, at least at the NBA level. But today's game, there's not really a George Lynch that types of players that play. You got players that shoot outside, and you got big guys in the middle. What kind of game do you think you would have had if you played in the NBA today?
Well, my game had to evolve. By my last 2 years, I was playing the 2 guard with the Hornets. Yeah, we had some injuries to Jamal Mashburn and David Wesley, and Paul Salas asked me to play the 2. Yeah, and basically because I could guard 1 through 5. I was able to do that, especially on the defensive end. Yeah.
So Paul Salas is one of my favorite players when I was a kid. I mean, he probably had one of the ugliest games in NBA history, but I used to love him. He was a great rebounder. He had this kind of finger roll shot. You probably too young to ever watched him play. But anyway, well, let's go back to Roanoke, Virginia. My father is from Bedford, and his brother was a pastor at a church in Christiansburg around the time you were playing ball. So we probably at some point been in the same circles. But before we talk about how you got started, what is it about the Roanoke area? There's always been a lot of good basketball players, a lot of good teams. Fleming, Patrick Henry, where you went to high school, but not just that. Northside has been good. Christiansburg, Blacksburg, even out to Pulaski. Why is that area so tough in basketball?
I think, kids played outside a lot. Humble beginnings, middle-class families. So you had that work ethic. And I think any kid who's played a lot of basketball in the parks, you always play with older guys. And playing with older guys, can someone go get my cord for this? It's by my nightstand.
Yeah.
Playing with older guys, it gives you that tough mentality, that thick skin mentality that it takes to play playground basketball. I mean, a lot of my early years playing basketball was in the parks, going from park to park, playing with different kids and different age groups. I think that's where it comes from.
Yeah, like whereas your kids probably train with a personal trainer, you were
Yeah,
out.
exactly. They got a trainer, everything organized. The teams are set. There's very little fighting that you have to do to earn your spot.
Yeah. Did you come from a sports family?
Yes, all my uncles and dads. All my uncles, played basketball and football. My dad was a good football player, from what everybody tells me. And then my stepfather, who introduced me to basketball, he played basketball at a small college.
Yeah. So when you were young, who were your role models? Like, who'd you try to play? Like, your game was very unique. You had your own game, but who did you try to play like, or did you have role models when you were young?
Well, so I grew up. Moses was playing with the Sixers and the Houston Rockets. Dr. J was playing, with the Sixers. The ACC was big time basketball. Later in my high school career, I was a big Len Bias fan. So I had a cross between, I liked the way Charles Barkley played. I loved the way Len Bias played the game later in my high school career. That's why I wore number 34. I wanted to go to Maryland. My freshman year, we were at team camp. That's when I heard about his death. So a little bit of mix of all that. And then, there was a game called 21 that these kids today know nothing about. So it was you against, it could be 5, it could be 2, it could be 7, it could be 10. So you had to be able to get your rebound, you had to play defense. And I remember a story one time, I came home and told my stepfather I didn't enjoy going to the park to play. And he asked me why. And I said, well, the big guys don't pass me the ball. And I was a big kid at that time. I was probably, 13. I was probably 5'10", 5'11", something like that. And he asked me, can you play defense? I was like, yes, sir. He said, can you rebound? I said, yes, sir. He said, can you dribble? I said, yes, sir. He said, can you shoot? I said, yes, sir. He said, well, play defense, get the rebound, dribble up the court, and shoot it yourself. So I took that mindset that no matter what team I was on, don't rely on someone else to pass you the ball. And it made me a better player.
Yeah. It's interesting about 21. I hadn't thought about that in a long time, but when I was in school, all the boys from Philly, that's all they had played. They had another name for 21. They played 21 all the time. And
right.
Where I was from, Northern Virginia, we didn't play 21 that much. I mean, we played it if we have enough kids to do a game. We played, pick up 5-on-5 all the time. But it is interesting how certain parts of the country, 21, in Philadelphia, that's all they played was 21. That's all they wanted to play.
Right.
So when you're growing up, George, did you go up with those kids like Curtis Blair, who played at Richmond, Percy Covington played at VMI, Russell Turner played he went to Hampton City, I believe.
Yeah.
Melvin Davis.
We all played AAU together. I think we all, right around 13 or 14, they were all a year ahead of me in school-wise. Mm-hmm. But we all met. We played for Joe Gaither in Roanoke, Virginia. And I don't know how he did it, but he assembled all of us in the gym. And majority of us, went to the same high school, which was great. We won a state championship my junior year. And that's what made us great. I mean, nowadays, these kids, everybody plays on a different AAU team. They all go to a different high school. We had one of the top teams in the country out of a small town, because we played together. Yeah. We got along. There was no egos about whose team it is, who's getting shots. Your parents just dropped you off at the gym and you survived. Mm. And the coaches had control, they forced you to learn to play together. Mm.
So did you play varsity your freshman year?
No, so I was still middle school as a freshman.
Oh, okay.
And then my sophomore year, the summer of my freshman year, going into my sophomore year, we were all headed to team camp in Bristol, Tennessee.
Mhm.
And that's where we heard about the Len Bias death.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first time I saw you play in high school, I was at state tournament game. It was a game against Hayfield where they held the ball. You
Yeah.
guys had on the bench, not starting. You, Curtis Blair, Russell Turner, and Bernard Basham played basketball and mostly football at Tech. I mean, that's,
Right.
that's one of the best benches ever. I mean, that's off the
No,
bench.
that was our junior year. So that was my junior year.
That was your
when
junior
we
year.
played. Yeah.
No, your sophomore year, because Curtis was a year ahead of you. Your sophomore year, your junior year, you got one state. Your senior year, you were at Flint Hill. But your
No. So my junior year, we played Indian River.
Yeah.
And then we played Hayfield in the championship game.
No, you played Lee. You played Robert E. Lee in the championship game, and they tried to hold the ball. They played a double stack stall on you, and they had a point guard named Bill Courtney. Bill ended up going to Bucknell.
You sure it was Robert E. Lee and not Hayfield that held the ball?
Yeah. Hayfield held against you in your sophomore year. You were, because I remember I came to the game and someone said, "Yeah, that's the super sub." They called you the super sub, and you came off the bench. You were like 6'6" off the bench, and it was Curtis off the bench. And you came in and you guys lost. Hayfield held the ball against you guys. You would have played against Indian River in the semifinals. You never saw them, and that was the year Indian River won state. And then the next year,
okay.
And then the next year, Indian River came back. Indian River wasn't as good the next year because they graduated. They had a guy named Greg Ford or Greg something. He had graduated. It was really Alonzo and like four little dudes, and you guys just had too much for him. But I was just going to say,
hey, Alonzo had 15 blocks that game.
Yeah. I mean,
we were going, we was like, look, he might block our shot, but we're gonna keep going that. We didn't know any other way to play.
Did you know Alonzo at the time from like Boo Williams?
So it's funny. So the AAU team with me, Curtis, Russell, Percy, we played in a Boo Williams tournament. And Alonzo was playing with J.R. Reed, Brian Stiff, Milton Bell. They were playing against our older team. So we were like 15 at the time. They had to be 16 or 17.
Mm-hmm.
And our coach, Joe Gaither, took us and made us watch the game because they were playing against our older team. That was the first time we saw them play. And then we played, like you said, we ended up playing them my junior year in Richmond in the state finals. Well,
do you think the team that you had your sophomore year, that was the year where you had Pendleton, as it was hard. So Curtis came off the bench. I think Percy still started, but you think that Melvin still started. You think that team, you got upset by Hayfield. Do you think that team was as good as a team that won state?
I don't think that team was as good as the team that won state.
You don't think?
Because we had went, in order to win state, you got to go through some things. And we were young. We thought then that we could just run everybody off the court.
Mm-hmm.
And then my junior and senior year with those guys, we learned how to play both ways.
Yeah.
We just wasn't a one-dimensional team.
Yeah. Well, both years you lost to Fleming, William Fleming, also Roanoke.
Yeah.
High school.
Yep.
Who was on that team? And I know you had to know those guys really well, right?
So William Fleming, they had oh man.
Yeah. I mean, you guys had to play pickup, and
they had a guy named Holland.
Yeah.
They had some good players.
Yes.
The year my junior year when we lost to William Fleming, we had just got back from Bristol, Tennessee, where we played. Every team we played against won the state in their area. We played against Brian Stiff. They won the state in D2.
Mm-hmm.
I think we played against Terry Kirby. Yeah. He was played 1A. Brian Stiff played 2A. We were a 3A team in Virginia. Darren Hancock, who's from Griffin, Georgia, they won the 4A state championship. Wow. So it was a great, and then the team that won it in Tennessee, we played against them too. So, but when we got back from that trip, we were tired.
Yeah.
And Fleming was I don't know how we played them like either 1 or 2 days later.
Right.
And we were exhausted from that trip. But we redeemed ourselves and won the second game against them and kind of, continued to go on a run. We only lost one game that year. We were a great team.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so your sophomore year, you end up losing to Hayfield, and then they lose to Indian River, who ends up winning the state. Your junior year, that was the team we mentioned before, Curtis Blair, who scored a lot of points at University of Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
Percy Covington was the starting point guard at VMI. Russell Turner has done great as a coach, played at Hampton City, and then Melvin Davis. Great team. You guys are rated all year long in USA Today, top 10, I think. And you guys actually beat DeMatha that year.
Yeah, we beat DeMatha, Oak Hill, and like I said, all those teams that was in that Arby's Classic. It's funny, my son's team is playing in the Arby's Classic this year here in Charlotte. So they say the tournament is not as high profile as far as teams coming in as it used to be back in the 80s.
Yeah.
But I think they got a good slate of teams coming in this year. It's going to be interesting to see my son full circle playing in that tournament.
You got some big shoes to fill. If you guys beat DeMatha in Oak Hill.
Well, I told him, I said, look, man, I was MVP of that tournament.
Wow. Yeah.
So he's got a lot of work to get to that point, but he's looking forward to the challenge.
Yeah, well, good luck. Hopefully we keep up with them. Who would you who would be on those DeMatha and Oak Hill teams? Anyone? I can't remember.
So they had Gerard Mustaf on the DeMatha team.
Mm-hmm.
He was the biggest name that I remember. But DeMatha always had a strong program.
Yeah.
Oak Hill Academy had, I think the kid's name was Orlando Vega.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that year. So they were a good team. I mean, right. I think when we played them, we might have been ranked 5 and they were number 1. Mm-hmm. They just, they came down to Roanoke. We were at Patrick Henry. It was a sellout crowd. I think it might have been whatever the capacity was for that gym at the time. It was sold out. Same thing. We actually played DeMatha in Roanoke Civic Center. Hmm. So that was a big stage game. But like you said, we had Curtis Blair, Percy Covington. I tell people all the time that our point guard, Percy might have been 6'3", 6'4". Curtis was 6'4", 6'5". Russell was 6'6". I was about 6'6". Melvin Davis was about 6'5". Bernard Basham coming off the bench was 6'6".
Yeah. So
we had the good thing about that team, man, we had all played together for 3 or 4 years. Yeah. And that's what made us a tough team.
And you were completely confident playing against Oak Hill and DeMatha? No problem? You guys are ready to go?
Oh, yeah. They didn't have social media at that time. They had newspapers.
Yeah.
So we would all go to the library. They would post the USA Today high school rankings. I think it came out every Monday. And we might have been top 20. And we knew we were better than that because we had all played AAU. We saw some of these guys in the AAU circuit. And every weekend we were climbing up the charts. And I think we were top 5 at one point. That might have been the highest we got to.
Well, your coach was named Woody Deans. What kind of coach was he? What kind of coach was Coach Deans?
He was a great coach for high school. They inducted him in the Hall of Fame. He just understood us at the time. He had some great players before us. Tony Dudley, Pendleton. He had been coaching for a while. And like I said, I think by him having the experience of a coach and dealing with, all these different type of conference games and I'm not for sure if he played college basketball, mm-hmm. but he knew more than most high school coaches. Mm-hmm. And then he had a talented group of juniors and seniors coming in. And it was just all the stars aligned, let's put it that way.
Well, so I've had this argument before that if you had to ask Coach Deans which team was better, that team or a team with Jonas Callis, Timmy Basham, Kurt Staples, Troy Mans, I forgot the other guy's name. Another Patrick Henry state champion, like 4 or 5 years later. Which team was better?
He got to say the 88 team, man.
Yeah.
Because, Curtis played, he was drafted late to the Houston Rockets, I think, or was in camp. I was in NBA camp. Bernard Basham played, I think he had a trial with the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
So you had 3 pros on one high school team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean,
it was
that
it was
they
two
might say
except-
they were a better team, but I don't know, man. We had the size over.
Yeah, well, they didn't beat DeMatha in Oak Hill, that's for sure. So
Right.
So when we go to the state tournament that year, and you guys got to make amends because last you got upset. You guys play Petersburg first game. Petersburg had a future teammate of yours, Capital Classic teammate, but also UNC teammate Kenny Harris.
Yes.
But he didn't even start. Do you remember that game against Petersburg?
I think vaguely I remember it. Kenny was a great scorer. I think he broke a lot of Moses Malone's scoring records in Petersburg. He might still hold them. Matter of fact, he texted me this morning. I got to respond back to his text. We stay in touch. We spent 2 years at Carolina together. We went on all our visits to Virginia Tech together. And he eventually, after 2 years, he thought he wasn't getting enough playing time, so he transferred to VCU.
Dean Smith is something else because he did the same thing to Hubert. Both Kenny and Hubert, you felt like you weren't sure if Dean thought they could really play at that level. And Hubert just kept at it and finally proved himself. I mean, he just kept working at it and said, I belong at this level. And, look at him now in a great NBA career. Kenny was a guy that he came on the recruiting scene late. I mean, I think when he went to the state tournament his senior year and he had 39 in one of the games, he was amazing. I don't even think he had signed yet. He was like a late bloomer. I think maybe he had changed positions or something. He wasn't a point guard.
Well, the way Carolina recruited, or the way Coach Smith recruited, at least the way he recruited me, I signed with Carolina late also. He didn't promise playing time to any kid. Now these coaches say, well, you come here, you'll start as a freshman, you promise them and give them all this hype. Dean Smith told me, and if I'm correct, he told Hubert, I don't think you're good enough. He told me, I don't know if you'll play your first year. And I'm like, well, I'm going to play. I don't know whose time you're going to give me, but I'm going to play. I didn't tell him that, but that was my mindset. Spending a year and a half at Flint Hill prepared me. And that was the other thing. I think if I'd have stayed in Roanoke, Carolina may have never offered me a scholarship. But because I went up, I played in that Catholic League in the DC area, I played in the Kenner League. I showed them that I could play ACC level basketball on a nightly basis. And that was kind of how Dean Smith, he knew the level of players that was coming through the ACC. And like I said, I won a state championship my junior year at Patrick Henry, and he didn't even recruit me. My guidance counselor, Dick Kepley, had told Coach Smith, you need to come check this kid out at Patrick Henry. And I'm not for sure if I don't remember them coming to see a practice. I think Terry Holland knew a little bit more about me, but at the time, a lot of the Virginia players were going elsewhere. Grant went to Duke. My teammate at Flint Hill, Aaron Bain, went to Villanova. Alonzo Mourning went to Georgetown. So many guys that was coming out of Virginia that year, nobody was going to Virginia. And that was one of my things. I was like, well, who am I going to play with if I go to Virginia? And, J.R. Reed that went to Carolina, Kevin Madden went to Carolina, Hubert Davis went to Carolina. So many guys were going to Carolina. So I was like, let me go see what Carolina is all about. And then I saw the Dean E. Smith Center and I was sold.
Yeah. That's all. I once took a team down to Danville for YBOA, And so between games, they wanted to go down to Carolina. So we drove down to Carolina and we saw the Dean Dome. So, they wouldn't let us in because it was close. The kids were just happy just to look at it from the outside. They just want to see the Dean Dome. I mean, it was really cool. It's a game changer. So I think Grant Hill had mentioned to me, I talked to him, that there was some issue about whether Terry Holland or Jeff Jones, remember there was some coaching change at the time of UVA as well.
Yeah, so I also heard that. I said, because a lot of the players from Virginia was going elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I was hearing, and I don't know how true it was. I'm just a high school 16, 17-year-old. And they was like, well, I don't know how much longer Terry Holland is going to be at Virginia. And I'm like, well, shoot, I can't go there and Terry not going to be there, because I watched, the ACC was big, on the East Coast, with Maryland, Virginia, Carolina, Wake Forest had a good team with Muggsy Bogues and all those guys. I made a statement earlier that I wanted to play in the ACC, but Maryland was my first choice.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Did they recruit you?
Well, they recruited me, but when that Len Bias situation happened, going into my sophomore year, they never recovered from it.
Yeah, that Bob Wade, it was a Bob Wade time, right?
Yeah, Bob Wade, yeah.
So did you ever consider going to Oak Hill instead of Flint Hill? Because Oak Hill, you could have lived at home, right? Or
yeah, Oak Hill was closer. But at the time, Oak Hill Academy was getting my dads and my uncles was helping me with that process once I decided that I was going to go, or I needed to go somewhere else to, raise my level of visibility. They were saying, well, the type of kids that go to Oak Hill are the kids that get in trouble, get kicked out of school. I don't know how true it was, but it looked like a lot of kids who were going to Oak Hill was going there because
they're running for something. They're running for something.
Right. And then one of my uncles was like, there's a school in DC area, Flint Hill. You got an aunt that live in the DC area. And that's when I heard about Flint Hill. And my parents reached out to Coach Vetter and Coach Sutton. And at the time, Coach Sutton, I don't know how true the story is, but Kevin Sutton, who's now at Florida Gulf Coast, he said, man, I was sitting there reading the paper and I was just reading your stats. And then you called on the phone and he was like, George Lynch, who? And he was like, is this George Lynch that went to Patrick Henry? And yeah, so he was like, yeah, we'll take you.
Yeah. So where did your aunt live? You live with your aunt
So my aunt lived in DC, right on O Street, right where the new baseball stadium is, the Nationals baseball stadium. And but that was like DC and DC traffic. That was like a 45-minute to an hour commute on the train every morning. So I ended up so I went to Flint Hill right after we won the state championship with spring break. I enrolled in school. I went up and started working out and practicing with the team right away. So I ended up staying those last 6 weeks with Coach Vetter.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so he had an assistant coach living with him, and I was the only player. So it was 3 guys. He didn't have a stove. All he had was a refrigerator. So we ate out every night. And then there was a family called the Dean family. They had a son who was 2 years behind me. He was a sophomore. And sophomore or freshman. He ended up playing at William and Mary. They said, well, we got a son that plays on the team. You can stay here with us. They had 3 sons, 2 older and 1 younger. And I was the 4th son. They just took me in.
That's awesome.
It made my experience a whole lot better because, I had a teammate that was going through the same things I was going through. Yeah. And we're good friends to this day.
So I played on the JV team at UVA the year before, I guess probably a couple months before you joined the team, we had played them in Charlottesville. I remember because I guarded Ronnie Thompson, and they had Dennis Scott, they had Aaron Bain, I can't remember his name, good player. Bebe, and then Cameron Jackson, they had a good team.
Yeah.
I think so, Cameron. But anyway, we're up by 8 points. We're up by 8 points with a minute and 40 to go. We're whooping them. They took us kind of lightly, and we're older kids. I mean, I was almost 21, 22 years old playing against high school kids. So we're ready for them. Dennis hit 3 3-pointers in the last minute and a half, and they beat us by 1 point. We had an 8-point lead with a minute and a half to go. And we were so embarrassed. A bunch of high school boys run us like that.
Yeah, I remember Dennis coming back in the summers. He was shooting the ball so deep. I mean, it was like, we had a small practice court anyway, but he was at the half court line shooting threes.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like, wow. And that's when I knew, I said, man, this is what college basketball at a big time ACC conference is all about. Yeah. Dennis was coming down in a high school pickup game shooting from half court.
Dennis was ahead of his time. I mean, the 3-point line was kind of new. There wasn't guys his size with that kind of comfort level at the 3-pointers back then. I mean, there might have been 1 or 2, but they didn't have Dennis's all-around game. Dennis can go in the lane and score. I mean, he was College Player of the Year 2 years in a row. I mean, people had never seen a guy with that size shoot the ball like that.
Yeah, he was unbelievable. He was special.
Yeah, he was unbelievable. So, Coach Vetter, what kind of coach was he?
Hold on just a minute. What time you got roll? I got it right. Oh, you do? Okay. My son about to go to basketball practice. He was, when you're a kid, you don't think he was fair, but he was always teaching discipline, structure, and being coachable. I remember he used to have us doing stuff that had nothing to do with basketball. We would do all his lawn. He had a house. I mean, his house was on it at the time. It felt like he was on a farm. We were doing yard work for him. He would give you 1 tennis shoe, and then he would say, "Come back next week. I give you the other shoe," because he had the big Nikes, the Air Force Ones. They were green and white. Everybody wanted them. So come back. You do the yard work. You get the other shoe. Yeah. Then you had the nice practice gear that because he was a Nike sponsored team. Yeah. We would do yard work or whatever he needed done, wash his cars, he'd give you a pair of practice shorts. So he had us working and learning hard work, along with the practices. At that time, you could practice a kid for 3 hours and no parents were involved. So it was great though. It was great for me. It taught me the work ethic, coming off a state championship, I thought I was good. But when I got there, you had Aaron Bain, you had Randolph Childress, you had, I think the kid's name was Fraser Johnson. He ended up going to Temple. And then playing against all that DC talent in the Catholic League, in the Summer League, it was great. I couldn't have been in a better place at a better time. Right.
Well, you go to the Capital Classic, you have a great game. I think you scored like 16, 17 points, great game. And then you end up going to UNC. We talked a little bit about UNC and how badly you wanted it. What was the culture like at UNC? Having Duke down there, having NC State down there, Wake Forest is not too far away. Did you enjoy that, the basketball culture of the Research Triangle?
Oh, definitely. Like I said, at the time, in the early 90s, the ACC conference was the best conference in college basketball. And then you had Duke, you had Wake Forest, you had Maryland. It's hard to say Maryland was in the ACC and now they're in the Big Ten. I mean, seeing games without Maryland. And at the time, the ACC and the Big East were battling back and forth, which conferences were better. Growing up as a kid, the way I played, I was probably more suited for the Big East. But Georgetown, Coach Thompson didn't recruit me because, Dean Smith was recruiting me and they didn't recruit the same kids.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And, but growing up in the ACC, you had that rivalry with Duke. It was always Duke was just coming into their own, 1 and 2 ACC, who's the best team in the ACC? Is it Carolina or is it Duke? Duke had just won 2 national championships. It just motivated us as a team to going into my senior year. It motivated us even more to dial in on what we wanted to accomplish.
Well, you hit the ground running. You scored. I mean, you averaged 9 a game, your first 9.5 a game, your first season. I think you had a big upset of Oklahoma in the tournament. But your sophomore year, you guys go all the way to the final. You get to the Final Four, and you lose to your future UNC coach Roy Williams, and then Duke beats them in the final. And Duke finally gets a monkey off their back because they've been closed for so long and never been able to win the big one. How did you guys feel about Duke when they win the championship? Did it hurt a little bit, or were you cheering for them because you had to know them?
Oh no, it hurt. It hurt. I mean, you know, the in the 90s, the rivalry between Duke and Carolina was serious, and it was. Although you wanted the ACC overall to do well in the NCAA tournament, you didn't want Duke playing longer than you were playing. You know, we probably could have accepted any other team in the ACC because they were further away, but Duke was only 9 miles from Chapel Hill. Yeah. And to see them playing, you run into those guys, and because of the heated rivalry, it just made it even, you know, you couldn't get away from it. It was on TV all the time. You would see them, people in Chapel Hill. You go to the mall, somebody wearing a Duke shirt, you know, Carolina wearing a shirt. It was just, you couldn't get away from it. So you dealt with it for any other team. They were far enough away, you wouldn't see them. But because it was Duke, you saw it every day.
Did you have any friends on the Duke team? Any of those guys? Because you and Grant must know each other from Northern Virginia.
Not in the 90s. Not in the 90s.
Oh, it was like that. It was like Pistons.
Yeah.
It was like Pistons and Bulls.
Yeah, I got Duke friends now, but not in the 90s. There was no friendship.
I didn't know. Yeah, Grant kind of mentioned that, and I wonder if you guys felt the same way. Well, in your junior year, it was unbelievable year. You guys go all the way, and you win the title. And
no, we won the title my senior year. Junior year, we lost to Ohio State. It was either the Elite Eight or Sweet 16. Oh,
you're right, because it was the year Hubie junior. Yeah, you won it after Hubie already left. Yeah. You got me on that one. All right, your senior year was a very special year, and the funny thing about that team is, it doesn't seem like on paper the most talented team. Eric Montrose. You had the guard who had was the MVP of the Final Four, the shooter. I can't
Donald Williams.
Yeah, Donald Williams. But it was one of those teams that was highly rated all year long, and then you played the Fab Five. You played a Fab Five in the final, and one of the most famous games because of how it ended. Did you know Chris Webber in the Fab Five?
No, we saw those guys all year, and even their freshman years, freshmen coming in with the black shoes, the black socks. We, as college players, we wanted black uniforms, black socks, black shoes, you know. But they wouldn't have that at Carolina. They were wearing Nikes, we were wearing Converse. So it was just one of those things where they were trendsetters. So we respected them for that. But as basketball players playing in the ACC, we always felt that we had the better conference. Duke had just won 2 titles, and we always felt in the ACC, I'm not for sure how many other teams felt that way, whatever team in the ACC gets to the Final Four is going to win it.
Yeah.
Because we've been tested all year throughout our conference. We've been tested non-conference schedule. Once we got to Final Fours, you know, it was almost for us, and I'm sure for the same thing for Duke. If you don't get to the Final Four and win it, it's a disappointing year.
Yeah.
Whereas most teams win the conference, you know, win the regular season. To at least when I was at Carolina, and when I talk to the guys at Carolina today, I'm like, it doesn't matter what you do during the regular season. Yeah, we want to beat Duke twice. We want to beat Virginia. We want to beat State. But if you don't go to the Final Four, and play in the national championship and win it, you haven't accomplished anything.
Well, Dean Smith got another championship, and by that time he was pretty late in his career. Was he a very hands-on coach at that time, or was he letting his assistants do most of the coaching?
Dean Smith did all the coaching.
Is that right?
Yeah, he was. I mean, the other coaches helped with the drills. You know, we broke down and did, you know, I wouldn't say station work, but we broke down defense, offense, you know, different parts of defense, offense. The assistant coaches was able to do that, but then he brought everything together. He was the coach. He was the only one talking, and so he ran the whole show.
Wow. Well, you couldn't end your college career on a better note, and then you go to the pros, and then every boy's dream, or many kids' dream, you go to the Lakers. So you had to be very excited to go to the Lakers right out of college.
Yeah, it was you know, small town Roanoke kid, played at Chapel Hill, another small town, but played on one of the biggest college basketball stages, and then winning the national championship, and then just that same summer going out to LA, being the first round pick. It was a lot going on, a lot of excitement. Almost, it was surreal because you couldn't believe you were going to play with the Lakers. You know, growing up watching Magic and the Lakers and the Sixers going at it, or Lakers and Boston Celtics. I was prepared for it, but then it was, you know, it was Hollywood. You know, it wasn't like I came from New York City or Chicago, one of the larger markets. I was, you know, in Chapel Hill, big basketball market, but small town. So it was eye-opening for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, great first year. I mean, the team struggled. Yeah, great first year, but early in your career, you got to spend a lot of time with James Worthy, a UNC guy, and Magic Johnson. You know, what did you learn from them? And what were they like?
Magic wasn't on the team; he had retired.
Was he coach? Was he assistant coach, or he wasn't coaching?
No, not the first year.
Yeah.
But James, you know, being a Carolina guy, he took me under his wing. He made sure that there wasn't too many things I needed while I was there. He already knew that Carolina prepared us to be pros and act professionally on and off the court. So he just made sure that, look, I'm here if you need me. You know, little things like places to go, where not to go. He shared that with me. He would take me out after games and, you know, to a restaurant and talk to me about, you know, just made sure that I had somewhere that my family wasn't there with me. So he just made sure that I had that big brother, that adult supervision around those first few months.
Is it hard to handle all that free time that you have when you're a young guy with all of a sudden a lot of money in your pocket?
Not really, because in order to get there, you got to have some type of focus and discipline.
Yeah.
And I kind of had that. I knew where I was. I knew why I was there. And like you said, other than losing more games my first year as a pro, than I lost 4 years in college basketball, that was the hard part, the hard pill to swallow. Well,
finally, Coach Del Harris, who had success at Houston about 10 years earlier, he turned it around. What did he do that made the difference? He came in your third year, and you guys really turned it around.
Well, they got some superstars. They got Shaquille O'Neal.
Right. They got Shaquille.
That's what changed it around.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, I mean, the years that I was playing with the LA, they were rebuilding. You know, Magic had retired. Worthy was on his way out. They were retooling the team. And I was just there. We made the playoffs, but I was just there at the wrong, well, I wouldn't say the wrong time, because it was a great experience for me. But it was just rebuilding years.
Yeah. Yeah. Is Shaquille somebody that we all know really well, because his personality is all over the TV. Is the Shaquille we see on TV, is that the way he is in real life?
I don't know Shaquille personally, because I was in the trade.
Oh, yes, right.
So I never got to play with him. Yeah, okay. I never got to.
Yeah, you're on your way to Vancouver, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Vancouver, you played for an expansion team. You know, they struggled. Was that disappointing, or was it good because you got a chance to play a lot?
I didn't play as much as I thought I was going to play,
Right.
but it was rough. When I left LA, I said, going to an expansion team, I'm gonna make the best of it. I should have played more than I played, but I got caught in, they drafted Sharif Abdul-Rahim, and he wanted to play, instead of them playing us together where we had success, he wanted to play the small forward, so they sat me down. I got hurt coming off the bench, and it was just between losing, I think we won 15 games that year. So being a pro, you always want to win games, and it was great guys. I mean, the veteran guys that we had there, were all kind of journeymen. Lee Mayberry, Big Country, Sharif. And then you just start to learn it's a different game between college and pros. Pros, it's about the salary. It ain't really about if a player makes more than you, more likely he gonna play in front of you.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about, until I got to Philly, where Larry Brown was like, look, it's about winning. I don't care how much you make. If you can't help me win, you're not gonna play. So I went from not playing in Vancouver to a starter in Philadelphia. So it was, went from not playing to the worst team on the worst team in the NBA to starting on one of the best teams in the East.
And I think it's pretty clear that was your best kind of 3 years or so in the NBA, so that time with Philly.
Well, there and with the Hornets.
Yeah, with the Hornets too.
Yeah.
But you turned, as you said, you turned it around. What was it? Larry Brown, he wants to win. What else is Larry Brown like? What kind of coach? What kind of coach is he? He seems like a disciplinarian, but
he was the closest thing to Dean Smith. And to me, as far as X's and O's, knowing the game, he was by far the best coach I played for in the NBA.
Did he play for Dean Smith, Larry Brown?
Yeah, he played for Dean Smith.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. And you knew Allen Iverson from your AAU days, so probably at least you played against him. Oh no, he was
younger. He was a lot younger than me. I didn't know. Of course, I knew of him because he was a Virginia kid.
Right.
He was from the Tidewater area, and I'm further west. We knew of each other, but great. He was a great teammate.
He was a big, because you hear. He's a controversial figure in that he is what he is. He seems like he wears it on his sleeves. But you enjoyed playing with him?
He was, out of all the guys I played with my NBA career, he was probably one of the best teammates that I've ever played with.
Wow. And why is that? Just because he finds a way to win, or he's the best player?
Because he came to play. He was a franchise player. He accepted that responsibility, and he showed up to play every night.
Right. So, well, then you end up going to Charlotte, which became New Orleans Hornets, and you played for Paul Silas. And we talked about that a little bit. And you played some guard for him as well because of injuries. And you played with, I think, Jamal Mashburn and a great guard you played with. So, what was Paul Silas like to play for?
Paul was the perfect coach for an older player. Because he played in the NBA, he knew the grind. He wasn't. I don't want to say he wasn't an X's and O's, but if you were in the league long enough, you kind of knew what it took to play the game, how to play, and he accepted that. He allowed guys to be themselves. He didn't, when you play as long as I played and play as many games, he didn't wear your body down in practice. He let you recover. He treated you as a man. He encouraged you to be a better player, which was great, towards the end of my career.
It's funny because I talked to Pat Toomey, who played Northern Virginia basketball, but he ended up playing for the Cowboys in football. he described John Madden the same way. He respected his players. He wanted them to be happy and to be rested. And, you know, he actually knew what they were going through, and that's how he treated them. And the players would do anything for John Madden. So look, you know, this has been great. And I really appreciate your time, George. I was just going to ask you one thing. What are some of the things you've done after your retirement that are memorable? Some of your most enjoyable moments you've had since your NBA career is over.
So right now I'm working with Michael B. Jordan, the actor. He's doing a Michael B. Jordan Legacy Classic. While I was coaching at Clark Atlanta, I saw that, you know, there was a discrepancy or a big gap between PWIs and athletic departments in the ACC and compared to what HBCUs, historically Black colleges, athletic department resources has to work with athletes. So we doing for all HBCU students on 12/17, the day before his classic, we do a career fest to introduce students of HBCUs to career opportunities. We have sponsors like Cigna, Verizon Media, Yahoo. So we use our corporate relationship. My nonprofit is called HBCU Heroes. We use our corporate relationships and our friendships to introduce them to students of color at HBCUs in their diversity inclusion workspace. So we're trying to identify the students who's looking to be financial advisors, agents, entrepreneurs, and we try to connect them to the corporate world who's looking for those type of students.
Man, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, look, George, again, this has been great. I know it's been a busy day for you over there, so I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me. This has been great. I really especially love the old high school talk, high school Patrick Henry talk, because I remember I saw all those games. There were such great memories for you. You were such an amazing player, and you carried it all the way through to 11 and 12 year NBA career. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, let's keep in touch.